You are now my timekeeper. I like that. That's good. I appreciate that. All right, so it's 3 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. Does everybody have a note card?
Yes.
All right, good deal. So, welcome to week 2. Yay! So, what did we talk about a little bit last week?
College is different from high school.
College is different than high school. True. What else did we talk about? Pardon? I didn't hear you. Mindset. Yep, we talked about mindset. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. Mindset's very important. What else did we talk about?
More specifically, growth mindsets and fixed mindsets.
Yep, we talked about the types of mindsets, and there's probably a continuum, but we talked about 2 kind of polar opposite mindsets, right? Growth mindset and fixed mindset. What else did we talk about? Yeah.
The professor's jobs isn't just to teach us, they do have other stuff going on, like research projects.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, yeah. A professor is very different than a quote-unquote teacher. One of the things I think people find surprising is, even though I love teaching, I love coming to class and teaching students and working with young folks, I have 0 training in being a teacher. None. Your high school teachers all went to school to be a teacher and learn how to teach and learn the psychology of all that. And I've had to kind of learn that as I went, right? So it's a difference between being a professor and being a teacher. Okay? What else did we learn last week? What resonated with you last week?
The whole being able to teach yourself.
Being able to teach yourself. That's right. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. We're gonna talk about how we take learning for granted, but we really don't know much about it. Most people don't know much about it. It's one of those things that we're born into this world. We obviously learn language, we learn how to walk, we learn how to communicate, both verbally, visually, body language. And yet, it's one of the things that very few of us really know how we do that, right? And so we need to think about that a little bit. How is it that I can expect you to walk into a chemistry class or an English class or a biology, whatever class, and really learn something without you understanding how that works, right? Do you need to know how your car's engine works to drive? You don't, but you still have to have some understanding of its function, right? You need to know that something's not right with it, it's kind of not running quite right here. You kind of need to know some details, right? So, I think it's very important to have at least some underlying understanding of what learning really is and what's different from that in terms of studying, right? When you were in high school, or at the community college, whatever the case may be, what did you hear teachers mostly say? You gotta study, you need to study, you need to study, you need to study. Today, I hope I convince you that that's balderdash. You don't need to study, you need to learn, and there's a difference. Studying helps us learn. I'm not telling you not to study, right? But I'm telling you to get out of studying mode and get into learning mode, right? And so, stop studying and start learning. That should have been something for you all to kind of look at and think, what is he talking about? I went to high school, my teacher told me to study. Study for the test. We got midterms, study for the midterms. What does that put studying at? Does that put it at a high priority for you or a low priority? I don't want to see hands yet, right? But I want you to start thinking about that. Most people have a certain set of mindset, if you will, when it comes to studying. And so what I want you to do is I want you from this day forward to stop studying as you currently probably do it. And I want you to think about it in a different frame. Okay? How many people have learned or heard or even practiced, right? The cram before the exam, go perform, and then what do you do with it?
Drop it.
Yeah, you typically drop it, flush it, forget it, whatever the case may be, right? Does that help you in the long run? No, doesn't help you at all. And so I want you to start putting yourself in a different frame of mind. And so there's the things that kind of come to our mind when we hear the word study and we hear the word learning, right? So let's have a little discussion on that. Let's start with the word study. What comes to mind when you hear the word study? I want you to go study.
Just kind of refreshing your mind over what you covered in class.
Okay, refreshing. Okay, that's a good one. What else? Do you have something?
Like reviewing.
Review. Okay, very good. What else?
I just read my notes.
Read your notes. Okay, what else? Practice. Very good.
I make flashcards.
You make flashcards. Okay, very good. What else? Don't be shy. What else comes to mind when you hear the word study?
For me, monotony.
Monotony.
Looking through it like over and over.
Yeah, something you got to get through, right?
Kind of.
How many people in here just love to study? Very few of us, myself included. Okay? Right? Myself included. So, reading. I heard somebody say reading their notes. Review. A couple of you said something about reviewing things, right? Exercising, doing exercises, right? Homework. I mentioned cramming and memorize, right? In today's world with AI and Google and all this, how important is it for you to really memorize everything?
Not really.
Not as much as it used to be. Used to, you had to carry a lot of knowledge with you, right? And I believe it was, I could be wrong, but I believe it was Einstein who said, education is what remains after you've forgotten everything you've learned. It's the framework, the rewiring of your brain. That's really what education is about, okay? Because you're going to forget facts. And you're going to forget more facts than you ever thought you could ever learn as time goes on. And you have at your fingertips today more information. Now, I'm substantially older than all of you, but I'm not that old. But I went and I had to actually go to a library when I started college. I didn't have the internet. Certainly didn't have a cell phone that I could scroll on. I had none of that. So I had to absorb that and take it with me. You don't have to do that anymore, right? Does that mean you don't need to know some things? Absolutely not. You've got to know some things, and you will know some things over repetition, right? But how would you categorize all of these things? If you had to use one word to categorize them other than the word study, how would you categorize them? If I asked you on your note card right now to give me one word that categorizes all those, what word might you use?
Short term.
Short term. We'll take that as a hyphenated word. Temporary. Fair enough. What else?
Tiling.
Pardon?
Tiling.
Tiring. Okay. They are certainly tiring. I would probably, were you going to say something? Oh, I'm sorry. I would probably use the word activity. These are all things that I do. These are activities. I open up the book and I read. That's an activity, and it can be tiring, right? I review my notes. That's an activity, right? I do some research, or I do my homework. I'm doing some sort of activity, right? Activities are important, but are they learning? I can do a lot of activities without learning a thing, right? And so we are an institution of higher,
Learning.
not an institution of higher studying. It's true, right? We are an institution of higher learning. That's what we want you to do. So now let's think about what are some words that come to mind when you hear the word learning.
Understanding.
Understanding. Application.
Teaching.
Teaching. Very good. What else?
Wisdom?
Pardon?
Wisdom?
Wisdom. What else? What else might come to mind?
Actively listening.
Pardon?
Actively listening.
Actively listening.
Growing.
Growing, growth. Absolutely. What else? What's one of the things we hope you get out of your learning? We hope that you can extrapolate that learning to something beyond what you've learned, right?
Experience.
Experience. Yeah. What else do you have?
I was gonna say knowledge, but then you finish your sentence, so I don't think it makes sense anymore.
Knowledge is fine. There's a difference between knowledge and just memorizing facts, right? Knowledge is a little more than just memorizing facts. A computer, not counting generative AI, right? But a computer has a lot of knowledge, a lot of memory. What do you do, right? I want ideas. I want people to learn things. I want them to be able to apply things. I've heard all of those terms here, right? So, we've heard a lot of things. Wisdom, understanding. Notice I've listed transferability. You're going to learn some things in your English class this semester that you're going to need to transfer to your chemistry class. What might that be?
Grammar?
Grammar. What else?
Comprehension.
Pardon?
Comprehension.
Comprehension.
Format.
Format. Right? But you studied that or learned that somewhere else and you brought it into a new setting, right? That's what we want you to be able to do when you leave this program. You will, everything that you learn at the university until you get into your research lab is already known. We've already figured that out. We're good. But we're using those exercises for you to learn about them so that you can apply them to new problems. You will learn in chemistry and in biochemistry and in your math classes and in your English classes and in your history class skills, knowledge, information that are transferable beyond your imagination at this point. Okay? You will get a job one day where you won't even remember how you got that information, but it will have its seeds here and maybe even earlier, right? It will become second nature to you. That is the education component, right? So there is clearly a difference between studying, which we can categorize as activities, and learning, which if you had to pick one word other than these to lump them all together, what would you say?
Lasting.
Lasting. Okay. What else? Anything else? Yeah, the learning piece is what's going to last with you forever. I like that. Well, forever. I could become senile tomorrow and forget it all. Right? But as long as we can practically do it. Right? But it will have it will be evergreen. Let's call it that, right? No matter what happens in technology, no matter what happens with generative AI, no matter what happens with the state of politics, the learning that you take with you, nobody else can take that from you. And you will be able to apply it in a variety of different situations and scenarios. Okay? That's very, very important. That's what we want you to leave with, right? So, according to the dictionary, Oxford Languages, learn more, right? Study is the devotion of time and attention to acquiring knowledge on an academic subject, especially by means of books. Got a book. Gonna read it. Just because I read a book, did I learn anything? Can I read without learning?
Yes.
Absolutely, and I do it every night. I read something or I watch something just to go to sleep. Okay? Because it puts me to sleep sometimes, right? I have an insomnia problem. So I'll read something, and the next thing I know, something hits me in the face, and I put it away, and I go to sleep, right? I'm not actively learning at that point. I'm using reading for different things. So I can study, I can read, I can do all those types of things, and not learning. Learning, however, right? The acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience. study, right, or by being taught. My job is done at 4 o'clock in teaching. Does that mean any of you learned anything?
No.
No. It means I did my job, I came in and I talked to you about some stuff. But that doesn't mean you learned it, right? Okay. I'm going to tell you something that I think is very profound, that I think you all need to completely understand, and I hope you take it in the spirit in which I mean it. It is extremely difficult to truly know something. Very difficult to truly know something. And the scientific method is the only method that I know of that can actually get to true understanding of the physical world in which we live. And that's because it's also self-correcting, and we'll talk about that throughout this semester, okay? So, it's easy to know what you think is a fact. That's just a piece of data. But what does that mean? What are the implications of that knowledge? That is very, very deep, very, very profound, and that's what scientists ultimately are striving to understand. How does the world work, right? And so, learning about something is actually quite hard. I've published many a paper. I have gone to many talks. I've heard people have differing viewpoints on things, and you look at one and you're like, that makes sense. You look at the other, well, that makes sense, but they contradict. I understand what they're saying, but where's the meaning, right? How does this work in the real world? I'm getting a little philosophical here, I know, right? But this is the stuff that is going to ultimately lead to a better life for everybody, right? Understanding things is very difficult, okay? And so I want you to understand that. So when I talk about the struggle of learning, I do not want you all to think of that as a negative thing. When you find yourself struggling when you're studying or you're learning, know that you're struggling because you're stretching your mind, and that hurts. It challenges your preconceived notions of how the world is. Many of you lived up in certain cultures. Many of you grew up in a certain part of the United States. Many of you have many different types of beliefs that are going to be challenged while you're at the university. Let your mind stretch. That does not mean you need to give up your beliefs or any of that. I'm not trying to convert anybody one way or the other. What I'm saying is have an open mind to that. And that is a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. Try to get to the truth, right? And so you can study about a variety of things, but truly learning about things is very, very difficult to do, and it will be painful from time to time, okay? And so it's very important that you need to keep yourself in learning mode. I want you, anytime you think of, I've got to go study, try in your mind to switch that around and say, I got to go learn. And that puts you in a different frame of mind. I think everybody in this room, including myself, will agree that studying can be boring. Does everybody agree with that? Everybody agrees with that. How many of you like to learn about something? Right? And if you enjoy it, what do? Some of you, it may be a craft. Some of it may be music. Some of you, it may be whatever. You will spend a lot of time doing that, and you will let your mind hurt trying to figure that out because it's something you enjoy, right? So put yourself in this, because we all enjoy learning. Everybody is born enjoying to learn about something, right? I hope that you can develop some level of appreciation for chemistry and biochemistry and find the love of learning that as well, because it does have real world applications. It's also very, very interesting. And the world, for better or worse, is largely dictated by what chemists have done over the past 200 years. We have medicines, we have fibers, we have clothing, we have foods, we have all kinds of things because chemists made discoveries and used the scientific method. Let me give you an example. Let's do a little thought experiment. Let's say that I come in here and I tell each and every one of you next week, okay, you're going to have to give this class a lecture on a topic. You're going to have to be here doing what I'm doing next week. Okay? You're going to have to prepare all the materials for the class. You're going to have to prepare a presentation. maybe put together a series of activities, okay, for the other students. How many of you does that excite? I saw one or two. Okay. How many of you does that scare? Why do you find it scary? Most people do.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. Okay. Why is it uncomfortable? Pardon? You know you had to do it? You've never had to do it. Right. Where you're sitting right now, I could be up here just talking to you all, and you all could be as passive as a bump on a log. Everybody agree with that? You can just be here. I'm going to listen to him for 60 minutes, and then I'm going to leave, and I want you out of that mode when you go to your classes, okay? But you've been able to do that through high school. Many of you have been able to go to class and figure it out, and right? But now all of a sudden, if I said, you got to be the teacher, you've never had to do that before. Many of you have never had to do that before, right? Why does that scare you as opposed to being the student?
I don't trust myself to be able to teach me how to do stuff, but I can't teach other people how to do it either.
Okay. That's a fair point. What else?
Because to be able to teach it, you actually have to learn it.
Ah,
completely,
yes.
Instead of just,
Yeah.
studying.
You all have certain expectations of me, don't you? You have expectations that when I'm talking, I know a little something about what I'm talking about.
You expect you to actually.
You expect me to actually know something, right? You have an expectation of me, right? Right there, do you have any expectations of yourself other than to sit and learn? I hope you do. Many of you could just come in here and sit down and be a spectator, right? You have no real responsibility to other people other than to yourself where you're sitting right now, right? Right now, I have responsibilities to all 20 whatever of you, right? That's a little scary, right? What else? What else about that? How many of you in here have ever taught anybody anything? Yeah, everybody's taught something, right? We've all taught somebody something, right? Even if it's as simple as, this is how you open that up, or this is how you log on to this website. You've all taught somebody how to do something, right? You may have had a friend that noticed you were doing some kind of neat little thing with, some craft or whatever. They wanted to know, teach me how to do that. And you showed them how to do that, right? So we can all be teachers and we can all be students, right? And so if I told you that you had to come into class next week and stand where I'm standing, what would you do between now and then? I gave you the topic. I said, you're going to talk about this topic. What would you do?
Procrastinate.
You would procrastinate?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's knock that one off the, let's say we're not going to procrastinate. What would you do? Would you study the material or would you learn the material?
I feel like you'd have to learn it.
You would definitely want to learn that material, right? You would not want to be in a situation where you have reviewed the material the day before and throw something together because why? Why would you not want to do that?
Somebody asks you questions, you don't know the answers.
That's right. How many people in here like to be embarrassed? Nobody. Nobody likes to be embarrassed, right? You're up, and I'll just give you my story. So when I was a postdoctoral student, finished my postdoc, my boss came to me and said, we got a job for a year. We need somebody to teach Chemistry 101 for non-majors. This was at Vanderbilt. He said, we want you to do it. I was terrified. And this was chemistry for non-majors. You all are majors. And I was terrified. Why was I terrified? I was terrified because I know what I know, but I don't know how to tell somebody what I know. I didn't really know how to do that yet, right? I know that PV equals nRT. I can repeat that. I can solve for it. I can do all the algebraic manipulations. But when somebody comes up to me and says, why is it that PV equals nRT? The first thing I wanted to say is, well, it's complicated. Well, if you say that, that means you really don't understand it, because the world does not work on complicated. It works on very simple, actually. And it puts a lot of simple together to trick us into thinking that it's complex. Right? So you're definitely going to want to learn that material because you don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to be embarrassed, right? Okay? So you will spend more time preparing for that class that you're going to teach everybody than you will probably spend on any one of your exams. And I think that's a shame. If I actually gave you all that assignment, said you really have to do this next week, many of you would probably put in at least 5 to 10 hours preparing, reading on the topic, making sure you understood it. You'd probably run it by your parents. Hey, does this make sense? Or run it by a friend. You'd do all of that kind of stuff. But if I said, next week on this topic, we're going to have an exam, you might likely cram before the night before, try to stuff your head full of a few facts, thinking about what I'm going to put on the exam, and not spend any more time on it. Why in the world would you spend so much time teaching somebody else and not that same amount of time teaching yourself? That's my point here, right? So I want you to get into this mindset of thinking about every time you're getting ready to do an exam or an assignment that you're going to have to prepare to teach somebody else that material. That will put you in a different frame of mind, okay? And teaching is a very, very important part of learning, okay? There's this Latin phrase, descendo discimus, I believe that's how you pronounce it, by teaching we learn. It is a true statement that you do not truly understand anything unless you can teach it. You have probably heard the myth of, well, if you can't do it, just become a teacher. Anybody that falls for that, right? It's just not true. You are going to have to be teachers. I'm just telling you, each and every one of you are going to have to be teachers. For those of you who are ultimately going to have children or have children now, you teach. For those of you who are going to go into the workforce, you're going to learn from people, like an apprentice. You're going to learn the ropes. And at some point, you're going to be expected to teach others the ropes. Okay? You're going to have to be teachers, regardless of whether you go to medical school, pharmacy school, dental school, graduate school, get a job, whatever. At some point, somebody's going to ask you to teach somebody else something that you know. Right? And you're only going to be asked to teach them when you really understand it. Yeah.
And I would assume ultimately the point of our education is to learn how to teach ourselves.
That's right. That is right. I have a PhD. What does that mean? It really literally means that I've gotten to a point where I can educate myself. That's all it means. And I did it through studying a very tiny piece of chemistry. Okay? And it means that I can then take that information and I can transfer it to other areas of chemistry. And I can learn. And I can learn how to teach people how to learn. And I can get outside of my comfort zone. That's what a PhD means. Okay? In all reality. Okay? But by teaching we learn. And so what's my point here for you all? What would be a great idea for you all to start doing to learn your material in all of your classes?
Study as if you had to teach it.
Yeah, or instead of just pretending, why don't you just teach it? Form a study group. Get people together. You know something that I don't know. I'll teach you what I know. You teach me what you know. Right? That works pretty well, right? What is the danger of study groups?
You have to talk to people.
You have to talk to people. Okay, that's true. What else?
Well, if one of you is wrong, and then you start teaching people the wrong, information, everyone's misinformed.
That's true. That's the fear I have right now. What if I tell you all something wrong and you all leave here believing it? Have I ever told people things that are wrong? You betcha. You betcha. That happens. It's going to happen. Do we let that get in the way of our progress? No. We own up to it, though, right? Correct it when we figure that. That's the scientific way. What else?
You have to depend on people to show up.
You have to depend on people. depending on people, can be very undependable, right? Certainly can be. What I have found with study groups is that people typically who are in the same boat tend to cluster together, right? You get kind of comfortable, right? So here's my advice to you on study groups. Form them, but form them wisely. Make sure they're about no bigger than 4 or 5 in number. Make sure that you are all not in the same boat. If you are all struggling with the same topic, it'll be hard for y'all to teach each other, right? Form a diverse group of people that understand different pieces of the class better than others, right? Learn from one another. The biggest problem that I've ever seen with study groups, and I was guilty of it too, is you all form a group, you get together and you start automatically talking about the class and that stupid instructor and how I don't understand the assignment, and it just devolves into a moaning and groaning session, right? And while that may be good for about 15 seconds to get that off of your chest, beyond that it becomes unproductive. So you want to make sure that you form productive study groups, people that you can learn from, people who can learn from you, and you want to regularly use them. You want to teach them. This book by Yancey McGuire, Teach Students How to Learn, is what this is all kind of based on today, okay? And I attended a talk of hers, and she actually said, because she was actually a chemist, but she was at LSU and she ran the Learning Center there. She found that even students who went and taught a plant would sit there and talk to a plant about a topic, that they actually understood their material better than students who did not do that activity. Now, of course, teaching it to a student and asking them to teach it back and that kind of thing is much better, but teaching is very, very important. So I want you to put yourself in learning mode, and we can learn by teaching for sure. So how do we learn? All right, I love this from the Learning to Learn piece, right? That's kind of a weird title for an article, right? Reading a assignment again, Learning to Learn. Sounds circuitous, right? But I taught Stripe to whistle, right? He's saying I taught my dog Stripe how to whistle. The other kid reached down, I don't hear him whistling, and I said I taught him, I didn't say he learned it. What I get paid for, I'm just being honest with you, I get paid for is to show up and deliver a lecture. I've taught you. The learning is all on you. I can't learn you, but what can I do? I can teach, right? And I can do that either really crappy, or I can do it halfway well, and I hope I try to do it well, right? What's a crappy way to teach? You all have been in classes for over a week now. Well, give me some examples. Don't tell me who, I don't want to know, because we're recording.
Just kind of literally only going through the lecture, not stopping to do example problems, just talking the entirety of class.
Yeah, so I can walk up here and I can just go through every slide. I can close my computer, I can walk away, and I can say, see you next week. I have technically taught.
It's just not engaging.
It's not engaging.
Giving out worksheets and not going over them and not explaining why, the why of the problems that are given in the worksheets.
Okay, what else? Give me some examples. Doesn't have to be that you had here, maybe in high school. What were some examples of what you would say were bad teaching?
I hate guided notes.
You hate guided notes.
Yes, whenever you don't like go back and explain things on the slide and you just tell people like what blank to fill in, and then
Okay.
you don't elaborate on everything.
Okay, fair enough. What else? This is your chance to complain. Sure. You have anything? No? Okay.
Teachers that just play a video
Teachers that just play video?
don't actually teach, they just play a video and that's it.
Okay. Did you raise your hand?
Teachers that are unfamiliar with the subject.
Teachers that are unfamiliar with the subject, okay. Hopefully we don't have too much of that.
I have.
Right? Do you have something else you want to add? No? Okay. So from what we just talked about, what can you do about that?
Study who?
You can form a study group, right? This is where study groups come in. Because the teacher's going to come in, the instructor's going to come in and do what they're going to do, right? But you can address some of that, right? If you have an instructor that goes through and just goes through the notes and leaves, you all can get together and actively engage with the notes and question each other, and you can ask each other questions of what does this really mean, right? How many of you like to just go to a class and be lectured to? Okay, some people like that, right? Well, that's okay. But how many of you like to go to something where you're actually engaged in? Right? More of you do, right? You need to have an engaging environment. That's one of the things that I could create as a teacher, right? I can help create an engaging environment. If that is absent in the class and that is what you're seeking, find other people who want to engage in the material with you, right? So, just because I taught it doesn't mean you learned it, right? That's the important thing. And so that gets us to Kolb's learning cycle. What's important about this cycle, right? There's a concrete dimension, there's an abstract dimension. We don't need to really worry too much about that. But what does this mean for it to be a learning cycle?
It repeats upon itself?
I'm sorry, you first.
It repeats upon itself?
It repeats, it is a cycle, that's right. It's iterative.
That's basically what I was
That's
saying.
basically what you're going to say? Right. What else? Anything else?
Do it indefinitely?
Yeah, it's ongoing, right? Keeps on going. Hopefully none of us will stop learning, right? Concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualism, active experimentation. What do those terms mean to you all? What is not there in the learning cycle? Pardon? Studying's not there. That's true. They don't say study anywhere, does it? What else isn't there? Who's not in that cycle?
Teacher?
I'm not in that cycle. This is a learning cycle. You all are responsible for your learning, right? I'm not in that cycle. But I can help facilitate this, right? In how I set up my course, right? So concrete experience. Give me some examples of a class that you had during the last week. Give me some examples of where you had a concrete experience. Any class. Yeah.
The chemistry lab?
Your chemistry lab. You went in and you actually physically, well, it's probably syllabus week, you may not have, but at some point you're going to actually physically do something, right? You're going to learn from the physical, you're going to provide you're going to get a feeling for it, right? What about reflective observation?
Calculus class.
Your calculus class, how was that a reflective observation?
Well, we mostly watch our professor work through, and he kind of gives us a step-by-step guide to solving the equations.
Okay. All right, very good. You're watching, right? Trying to pick up some tidbits. All right, very good. What about abstract conceptualism? What about that area? Yeah.
When I like get certain problems wrong and I have to think back on like different ways to do it, figure it out.
Okay, so that's kind of the metacognition piece that we talked a little bit about last week, right? You're thinking about it. You're pushing the limits. And this is my favorite one, being a chemist. Active experimentation, right? How many of you had experiences with that this last week? Yeah, you did something, right? We're going to learn about that in this class as well. We'll learn about the scientific method. Right? It's very important for you all to learn about that. You know I've already mentioned this several times. But I then go back around. You're always going to be learning. You're going to learn things in general chemistry, for example, that you think you completely understand, that you've answered all the chemistry questions correctly. And then you're going to get to physical chemistry in your junior year and you're going to go, wait a second, it's deeper than that. I'm going to learn more about that. And it keeps going, right? Right now you might be learning about it at the macro level, a bunch of gas. PV equals nRT, but only if it's an ideal gas. And then you're going to learn there is no such thing as an ideal gas. And wait a second, it's a little different under these conditions. And you're going to learn a little deeper, right? So you're going to go through this entire cycle over and over and over again, right? And you're going to have fun while you're doing it, okay? Here's the point. It's all about experiences. Every one of those is your experience. Making mistakes is an experience, and it's something that you all need to be engaged in, okay? Don't be afraid to make mistakes. There's better places to make mistakes than others. Where are good places to make mistakes? In the classroom, like right here, it's perfectly safe to make a mistake. I encourage you to make mistakes, right? I'm not grading you. Let's make a mistake. Let's learn from that. Homework. Usually most homework is low stakes, right? Exams, a little less so. Those are a little higher stakes, right? So you want to make your mistakes early, learn from those mistakes so that you don't make them later on. Failure is the best teacher, I promise you. Everybody in here will fail at something at some point. How you move forward from that is very important. Repeat performance, your interactions with others, and personal reflection. This mirrors a lot of what you learned from the study tips. Learn from your mistakes, right? Interact with others. Repeat performance. You don't practice football just by throwing one ball and catching it. It's over and over and over again so that you have that muscle memory. If you're in music, right, it's that muscle memory that you have, right? It's very important. So don't think that just because you answered one question right that you automatically completely understand that concept. You have to do repeat work here. Does anybody know what this pyramid is called? This is called Bloom's taxonomy. It's the taxonomy of knowledge. Okay? Where do you think you were on this in high school? Kind of right in here, right? Probably some classes you started to understand some topics, but a lot of your classes were about, do you know that? How do you translate that? You know, you were facts, regurgitating, right? Is this the important thing that we need in life today? No. But do I need it to understand these other things? Absolutely, right? Where do you think you are now?
Probably about analyzing.
Think you're that high up?
Yeah.
Okay. Right? Where do you think we want you to be when you graduate? You think I want you to be at the top? I don't think you'll be at the top. Just gonna be honest with you. Not with a bachelor's degree, not in chemistry. I think you'll probably be about here. What's that good enough for? It's good enough to go to medical school, it's good enough to go to pharmacy school, it's good enough to go to law school, it's good enough to get a job. Right? But it is not good enough to be a practitioner as a chemist that creates new things. Now, some of you may get there. But in general, overall, I'm pretty happy if a student in chemistry and biochemistry, when they leave our program, can analyze things really, really well. They have that level of understanding, that level of knowledge. Okay? So, because I know you have to leave here in just a second, on your note card, print your name, your ID number, and on the back, tell me where you personally think you are on Bloom's taxonomy, and one sentence why. I'll give you 2 minutes. Is it hot in here to everybody?
Yes.
One more minute. So throughout the semester, I will post a few pieces from this book in Canvas, things that I think are wise things for you to read about and learn from. Again, this is the Teaching Students How to Learn. This was by Dr. McGuire, and her daughter wrote it. Okay, her name was Dr. Sandra Yancey McGuire. Teach Students How to Learn was the title of the book. And she talks about 10 metacognitive strategies for learning. These are things that I think most people don't do well. I'm not saying you don't do them, but we don't do them well. And we have to refresh our memories. The first thing you need to do before you go to any of your classes is you need to preview. What does that mean?
Go back over.
Go back over?
Oh, for preview.
Yeah. There's going to be that piece.
I'd say let's look over something.
All right? You have got to prepare your mind for that for which it is about to receive. You walk into a class without preparing your mind, it will not stick, and I promise you that. Okay? So what does it mean to preview the material?
Prepare yourself for what you're about to learn.
Okay? Prepare. How do we do that? What activity would we do? We would read.
Like if you post the lectures, just go through the PowerPoint.
Maybe go through some stuff. Yeah.
Like giving yourself a basic understanding so that when somebody is talking about it, you can delve deeper.
Yeah. All great things, but I will say this is the one crucial thing, the minimum. And don't settle for the minimum, folks. But the bare minimum when you walk into any one of your classes in college is at least know what they're going to talk about that day. What topic is going to be covered. I cannot tell you how many students come in and go, what are we going to learn today? You're already behind because you don't even know the topics that we're going to be covering. You have not prepared your mind to receive anything that we're about to cover. So at the very least, go through your assigned reading material and understand what general topics are going to be covered. Do some reading, okay? You need to prepare for active reading. What does it mean to read versus active reading? And I've given you a hint. I do this sometimes when I try to go to sleep.
Like you said, you can read stuff and not garner
I
any
read all
understanding
kinds
from
of
it.
crap and don't understand and don't remember a thing of it, right? Lord of the Rings puts me to sleep faster than anything. And I know many of you think that that's sacrilege, but it's just me. Can't remember anything.
Or the Hobbit.
Or The Hobbit.
Basically, read when you're reading and actively think about what you're reading as you're reading it.
Yeah. There is reading the words, and then there is reading the paragraphs. There's reading the ideas. And to me, active reading is about getting the ideas. Right? I can read all the words and not get the idea, but it's about getting those ideas. But you need to prepare for that, right? By previewing. Okay? Paraphrase. What does that mean? And how is that useful for us?
Why?
It's taking the ideas you just read and making sure you understand them by putting them in your own words.
Yep.
So that way you know how you're thinking about it.
Yep. Perfect. So I tell people, your textbooks are broken up into sections, little topical sections. When you finish one of those topical sections, in 1 or 2 sentences, you should be able to say what that was about, right? You should be able to paraphrase. Those 3 pages were about this, right? You need to be able to do that. You need to actively read. Again, reading for learning. What is the idea? Right? You need to use the textbook correctly. What do I mean by that?
Look at it as like a resource.
Look at it as a resource. Using it correctly is looking at it before you actually go to class, knowing where materials are. In all of your classes that for which you have textbooks, you should have already gone from page 1 to the end of the textbook. Not having read it, but looked and seen what is in the book. You need to prepare yourself for that. Okay? How many of you know that there's a thing called a table of contents? You think I'm joking, right? But I have had students come to me and say, "Oh, I don't know how to find that." And I went, "Did you look in the index? What's that?" But many of you haven't had to do that. You can do Google, right? And you can, but you need to be able to use your resources effectively. And I'm not trying to belittle anybody here, right? But textbooks are ordered in a way to help us learn. Use it correctly, okay? Attend class and take notes by hand. Why is that important?
You understand it better whenever you're writing it and taking it in
Uh-huh.
than just guided notes like you said.
Yep.
Because when you take notes by hand, it forces you to paraphrase, which makes you think about what you're taking notes on, and it makes you think about it and understand it better.
Yep.
By actually going to class, you're seeing the questions people have, and you might have the same questions, but if you don't go and you just like read the textbook.
I like
if
that.
you're
Very
confused,
good.
You don't know what's
Yeah,
going on.
this is a learning community. You all are learning from each other as you ask questions. You may have 4 questions. He's going to ask one that you may not have thought of. Would you have gotten that if you all were just out on your own doing this online without interacting with each other? Not at all. You had something you wanted to say.
The very feeling of writing something down with your hand makes you think about the words that are being written down.
Yeah, there's something about this, and I wish I knew what that something was, but I think it's true. Taking notes by hand does seem to help. Do your homework without using examples when assigned. That's that struggle piece. You've got to grapple with problems to solve them. Okay? Why do I say, well, I put in parentheses when assigned? What's one of the things that students typically do?
Wait till the days.
Wait to the very end. If I cover, let's say, a chapter today, and you wait 3 days later to start answering questions about it, what happened? Things started leaving your brain, right? You need to do this in a reinforcing. You need to teach the material. Find somebody to teach it to. It's very, very important. It will work, I promise you. Work in groups. I should say effective groups. Don't get in a group with a bunch of people that just want to complain about me. All right? Not that I want to be complained about. But you know what I'm saying. You want to be in an active group that is going to engage, right, with the material. Very important. Create your own exam. How many of you want your instructors to give you an old exam? Everybody does, right? And I give them, when I teach my organic class, all the time. And then what do I hear from students? There weren't any of those questions on the exam. Well, no. I gave you that exam. I'm not going to put those questions back on the exam. I'm trying to probe what you know and understand. When I give you a copy of the exam, I'm giving it to you so you understand how I ask questions. Not that those are the questions I'm going to ask again. But if I ask questions about reductions of ketones, chances are I'm going to ask questions about reductions of ketones again, but it's not going to be the exact same questions, right? But if you sit down and think about, I wonder what kind of questions would be on this exam, and you're starting to manipulate and learn the material in ways that you wouldn't have prior. And then, last but certainly not least, I added 11 because I said there are 10 metacognitive strategies. I put the 11. Personal reflection of your performance is very, very important. Okay? In my opinion. Okay? And so this is what Sandra Yancey McGuire calls the study cycle. Okay? You need to preview the material before class. You need to attend class. I did. This is an old number. But when you take the tuition number and the amount of hours you're in class and you do the simple arithmetic, you are paying 50 cents a minute to be here. You're in here for 30 minutes, or 60 minutes, that is $30. from the time you walk in to the time you walk out, you've paid us $30. How many people, don't raise your hand, but I mean, how many people in here make $30 an hour? You're spending good money. Get it, okay? When you've done, make sure you review the material after class, preferably as quickly as possible, right? Within a day, you need to review. Put yourself in learning mode. What was it about that lecture that I didn't understand? Let me go back to the book. Let me study on that. Review. I expect you to do, if you were in my organic class, not so much this class, but if you were in my organic class and you came to me and you said, Dr. Masterson, I need to meet with you and talk to you about some material. I say, okay, let's make an appointment. And you come and I say, what can I help you with? You go, I don't know. I don't understand anything. I can't help you. I don't know how to help you. But when you go, well, I was reviewing my notes and I don't understand how you went from this functional group to that functional group. I don't understand that. Okay, let's sit down and let's work through that. You can't have those types of questions with your faculty if you don't review your material, right? Go to talk to your faculty about the areas in which you do not understand, but you can't do that with everyone. You're going to study, then you're going to assess. Make your own exam. Make your own exam questions. Do you understand it? The things that you don't understand, you're going to come back and you're going to study some more, okay? Put yourself in learning mode. Work problems. If you're working all the homework problems and you're getting them all right, that means you're good, right? What does it mean?
It means it's a skill that you've probably already learned.
Okay. Maybe you do know that material pretty well, right? What should you do? How many of you have a textbook that has problems in them? Right? Are all the problems always assigned? Yeah. So if you're finding yourself, well, I'm getting those really, really well. Keep working a few more until you get to a place where you start to struggle. Then you've started to learn the material, right? So working problems is very important, okay? And we're going to change it from the study cycle to the learning cycle. We are kind of out of time, so I will finish this up next week. We will have class, even though there is Labor Day on Monday, right? This class is not on Monday, so we will be in class. Make sure you check Canvas. The notebook reflection is available, and it will be due on Friday, just like normal. And I will have everything up for Wednesday next week by the end of the day on Labor Day. So that won't change. Hopefully I'll have it up by Sunday, but no later than 5 o'clock on Monday will be good. It was good seeing you all. I hope you all had a good rest of your second week. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Make sure you turn in your note card.